This video is about what I believe is most important to learn in fighting games when you're trying to get better at fighting games. So, the thing that I believe is most important is how to hit the other person without getting hit. So, sometimes people talk about things like tiers, well, those really don't matter at all. And then things like combos, some people will focus too much on really difficult combos, and that's not really that important. It's more important to learn how to hit the other person without letting yourself get hit. So I'm going to give some examples of what I mean about that. For example, if you're just trying to hit the other person, you could hit them with a move like this. And that is one way to hit the other person. But the problem with that is, if the opponent knows how to counter it, then they're gonna end up hitting you, and you're just not gonna hit them. And there's a lot of ways they could counter it. They could move out of the way, and then when you miss, they could hit you, or things like that. So even though it is a way to hit the other person, it's not a good way to hit them without letting yourself get hit. And another example of that is like a move like this. You could hit the other person with it, but if they were to dodge it or if they block it, then you're at a disadvantage, or you're just gonna get hit because there's so much time to recover from it. So it's another move that's like, it's a way to hit the other person, but it's not a good way to prevent yourself from getting hit. And those are some pretty simple examples. Like, I think most people who try to play fighting games pretty seriously know you can't just throw out reckless moves all the time because you're gonna get hit. But then it gets more complicated. So for example, if you're in this situation with this character, you could hit the other person with this move, and it looks pretty good. And it actually is it's not bad, but there's a problem with that. So if the opponent happens to jump over it, then you're leaving yourself wide open to get hit. So again, like in this situation, this isn't exactly a good move to do. Now this brings in the second really important point that I want to talk about, and it's that you have to understand the rock, paper, scissors nature of fighting games. So I'm saying that this is not a very good move to do, but that's because I know that in this situation, when you're like here, most people tend to jump because when you're in the air, it gives you more mobility and more options. So most people will tend to jump in this situation, and you'll tend to miss, and then they'll hit you. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you should never do this move, because if the opponent you're playing against doesn't actually jump, maybe they move forwards or something, maybe they do something else, then it's actually a good move if they don't jump over it. So a lot of this depends on what your opponent does. So while I'd say in general something like this, like in this situation, this isn't a very good move in general, sometimes it'll have its place depending on what your opponent does. For one more example, like sometimes being able to hit the opponent without getting hit yourself depends on either specific positioning or specific timing, where if you press the button a little bit too early, then you get hit, but if you press a little bit later, you don't get hit. Or if you wait until you're a little bit farther away and then you press the button, then you hit the other person, but if you press it just a little bit too early, then they hit you. There are a lot of situations like that where you have to be pretty precise or pretty exact with your timing or your spacing. Now I talked a lot about the how moves can be unsafe and lead to you getting hit. But there's another side to that too. You also have to be able to hit the other person. So you can't focus too much on the not getting hit part, because if you don't know how to get your own hits, then the other person can maneuver their way into an advantage, and they'll probably end up winning. So here's one good example of that. Let's say you don't want to do a reckless move, so you're not doing anything, and then you jump back and then you block. Well, now you're already at a disadvantage because there's like a lot of things that you you can't really do anything good, and you're at a disadvantage because you're forced to block. Where if you're thinking about how to hit the other person, you could just do something like this and hit them. So this is the other side. Like I said, you want to know how to hit the other person, and not just how to like not let them hit you, and how to block everything. And one more example is like, let's say you're using this character and you're just standing on the ground waiting for someone to jump at you so you can hit them out of the air. Well, someone might like, if you just wait for the other person to move at you, they can choose how they want to approach and make it really hard for you to hit them. So they can do stuff like this, or like they can pretend like they're gonna fly at you but not actually fly at you, and then land on the ground and then hit you, or stuff like that. And it'll be really difficult. Where on the other hand, if you moved forwards and tried to hit the other person, then they couldn't do that, and you would be at an advantage, and you would be getting a hit instead of being the one under pressure and like in danger of getting hit yourself. So you have to know situations where you need to move forwards and get a hit, or you need to attack the other person to stop them from doing what they're going to do. Now, I mentioned it earlier, but I want to go over it, and I want to mention it again, how it really is like a rock, paper, scissors game. Where, so I said you want to move forwards and hit the other person if they're gonna like jump and fly at you, but maybe they don't actually jump and fly at you. They think that you're gonna move forwards, so they hit you instead. Well, it doesn't mean this is a bad move to do in general. It just means that it's like a rock, paper, scissors game. Just because rock loses to paper doesn't mean rock is a bad move. If you knew your opponent was going to do scissors, you should do rock. But if you knew they were going to do paper, you shouldn't do rock, you should do scissors yourself. So it's really like that. Like, if you know what the other person's going to do, you should do the move that counters it. And most of the time you don't necessarily know what they're going to do, but you can have an idea. But the point I want to emphasize is you can't rule out every move that has a counter as being a bad move. Like, this isn't a good move to use in general, like I was saying, because the other person is probably going to jump over and then move forwards and hit you. But if you're playing someone who doesn't do that, then it might be a good move. So it's, again, it depends on what your opponent tends to do. Now, when you're trying to figure out like how to hit the other person without getting hit, I'd say you should focus on situations like where you are on the screen. And I can only give real advice with this character really, because I don't know any other character very well. But for example, if you're like on this far away and you're both on the ground, you want to think about like, what are your good options to do, and what are your solid options. So first you want to learn things that are really solid, like they aren't reckless, so they aren't too risky or dangerous, like something like this. That's not really a solid thing to do, because it could easily lead to you getting hit. So you want to learn solid moves in each situation, but then you have to know that If that's the only thing you ever do, someone might know how to counter that. So then, after you know solid moves, you want to learn a little bit more, like a little bit more variety. So in this situation, one move that's really solid if you have 1 meter is just this, because it's very hard for the opponent to dodge it or get out of it. If they try to attack you, they're going to get hit. To try to move forwards, they're going to get hit. And if they block, you're kind of at an advantage anyway. So something like this is really solid in this situation. But you might not always have a meter to use, and also there's other options that you could go for. So like some other things would be like moving forwards and pressing B, or jumping back and doing this. These are the more solid ones because like you can't really get hit very easily if you jump backwards. But the opponent might be able to like dodge it or get out of range, and then they would have the advantage. And in a situation like that, then you would want to adjust and do something a little bit different. So, as an example of what I was saying before, like this jumping forwards and doing that move is kind of an option, but it's not as solid because like someone just hits you if they jump forwards and attack. Or they could stand on the ground and hit you maybe, things like that. So it's not quite as safe, but if you knew like the opponent's going to jump backwards instead of jump forwards, then maybe you should jump forwards as well. Or things like that. Then when you're trying to learn a character, you want to learn like as many different neutral situations as you can. So like standing kind of close, if you're both on the ground, that's one situation. Now what if you're like really far away? What do you do there? Like you can't hit with these moves. So what should you do to try to hit the other person without really letting yourself get hit too easily? So with this character, maybe you super jump forwards, maybe you jump and press neutral homing, but you don't actually have as many good options. So that is another thing, like you want to learn the situations where you have really good options. Like if you're here, the other person can't really reach you with anything, but you can hit them with various moves, and you want to go for, or you want to try to get into situations like that where you have the advantage. But even if you're, even without worrying so much about that, you should have a good idea of what you want to do in all the different situations you encounter, so you're not just spending too much time like standing around or just like doing long range moves that miss and leave you open or things like that. So like really far away is one situation, then you could be in the air. How do you approach the other person, or do you approach them, or maybe you just like use a long range move, things like that. And then it's like if the other person's in the air and you're in the air, what should you do? Maybe you just fly at them as fast as you can and attack. So there's a lot of different neutral situations that you want to learn how to attack the other person without letting yourself get hit. And I'm emphasizing neutral because that's really what you want to focus on first. You don't want to focus too much on situations where you have like a big advantage, like where you already knocked them down, because you have to figure out how to knock them down first before you even need to worry about that. And you also don't want to focus too much on like defensive situations, so people will do that, like maybe someone will have a really good mix-up and they'll feel like, man, I really need to learn how to deal with that really hard mix-up because I always get hit by it. But more important than that is like, don't let yourself get in that situation in the first place. Like, also when people play against me, sometimes they'll say like, they really need to learn how to get out of the corner because they spend like 90% of the match getting hit and blocking in the corner. So they really need to learn how to get out of the corner. But then the problem with that is, like, if you're not good at hitting the other person without letting yourself get hit in neutral, then even if you were like really good at getting out of the corner, you wouldn't actually, like, it wouldn't help you win, because after you get out of the corner you wouldn't do the right move, and then you would get hit, and then you would get put back in the corner, and it wouldn't matter. So that's why I say really focus on neutral situations and not situations where you're like defending or anything. Focus on how you want to hit the other person, and not just how to like dodge their moves or avoid their moves. So like have an idea of what it is you want to do in order to get a hit on the other person. Then once you have some good ideas on that, then you can go with more follow-up situations. So for example, in general, a move like this is really good because most people jump, and then when they jump, then they're either going to get hit or they're going to block it, and both situations give you an advantage. So that's the move. That's an example of a good solid move to do in neutral situations. But then you can learn follow-ups to that, where what should you do if you hit the other person? You should do something like this, probably. Some combo like that. And then what should you do if they block? Well, the most solid follow-up off of this is probably this. So if they block and you do this move, then if they try to guard cancel, they're gonna get hit. If they just block, nothing really happens, and you're at a good advantage in this situation. And so it's a really strong and solid follow-up that doesn't really leave you vulnerable to anything. Whereas if you tried some other follow-ups like this, you might be leaving yourself open to getting hit by something. So with whatever character you're using, after you learn good moves to do in different situations, you can learn good, solid follow-ups to do that don't leave you vulnerable. Then again, I keep saying it, but I think it's really important, and to understand how it's a lot like a guessing game. It's a lot like rock, paper, scissors. So some situations are really like you need to learn multiple options, and you can't just do one option or the other person can just beat it every time. So let's say this is going to be like a really simplistic example, but let's say you're both in the air. Maybe not simplistic, but or oversimplified, where in the actual game it's more complicated. But let's say you're both in the air and you're both homing at each other. Well, one option is to just press the button as fast as you can, and then if you do an attack faster than the other person, then you get the hit. And if they do an attack faster than you, then they get the hit. So that's one option. But then, because you're trying to press the button as fast as you can so that you're the one who gets the hit, that means if the opponent did something like dodge, then maybe you're gonna miss and you're leaving yourself open and you're gonna get hit. Again, like I was saying, in the actual game, it's a little bit more complicated than that because there's more things that can happen, but I'm just going for the main idea here. So that option counters this option, where you just fly forwards and press the button as fast as you can. But that doesn't mean flying forwards and pressing the button as fast as you can is a bad move, because So let's go with one more option. Let's say you fly forwards, but you wait to press the button. And then if you see them dodge, then you press your attack and hit them. So now that counters the option of dodging back and countering a fast attack. But if you knew the opponent was gonna like fly forward slowly and press the button slowly, then you could fly forwards quickly and press the button really quickly and hit them first. So now it's a full rock, paper, scissors situation where you can fly forwards and press the button really fast, or you can try to dodge, or you can fly forward slowly and wait for the other person to dodge and then hit them. And all of those three things should be considered as like decent options. Like you can't rule out one of them and say don't do that move because you get hit when you do that move, because it counters a certain move. So it's a guessing game, and there's no exact like perfect move that's gonna hit the other person without leaving you vulnerable at all or without any risk. It's just trying to win a guessing game. Now, that kind of leads into a concept of risk-reward, where even though it's kind of like a rock, paper, scissors game, I like to think of it as an imbalanced rock, paper, scissors game where some options are worth more than others, where like maybe if you get a certain hit like this, it leads into a full combo, and then it gives you a lot of damage and a chance to do a certain setup, and it's just a really good situation if you hit the certain move. But in the same situation, maybe you have a different option like dodging or something like that, where even if you win, even if like you counter the thing that your opponent was doing, you don't exactly get a big advantage. Like maybe you don't get a combo off of it, you just put yourself in a better situation. So it's not worth as much. So a lot of situations, I'd say pretty much like most situations in fighting games are like that, where some options are worth more than others. Or in the same way, some options are more risky than other ones. So let's say you're defending and you want to counter with this. This is a pretty high risk and low reward move because like if the opponent blocks it, then you're open to attack, and they can follow up with a big combo, and they get a big advantage off of that. So it's a high risk move, and if you hit with it, all it does is blow the other person back. You can't like do a combo, or it doesn't damage them. So it's not exactly high reward. So it's pretty high risk, pretty low reward. So it's a dangerous option. And the opponent can even have some techniques that like counter it while attacking, where you would think it's invincible and it hits pretty far. So if the opponent attacks, it would seem like this is a good move to use because it would counter them when they attack. But the opponent could even have techniques that like beat that, where this is an example of one where if you jump in and attack but land and block, you can even you can block this, so it doesn't even counter that. So you might think it's a bad move to use, it's too risky to use, but that's not necessarily true, because if it counters something that your opponent does, then it might be a good move to use. So let's say your opponent tries to do some mix-up like this. Well, doing this extend force counters that. So it's not necessarily a bad option. Like if your opponent really likes doing this mix-up, then it's fine to use extend force a lot, because it would be countered by that. So this is another point that I keep trying to emphasize, but you don't want to rule out moves just because they can be countered, or just because they're high risk, or things like that. If a move counters something, then it probably has its place. So for example, let's say you start using this, and then your opponent goes back to like baiting it. Well, what you did by using this move was you got your opponent to adjust to you, and instead of doing like the hard mix-up that was giving them a lot of hits, they now have to adjust to you and do something different, or something less strong to adjust to the option that you're doing. So again, it's like a high risk and low reward move, but it has its place, and it can force your opponent to do something else that's not as strong. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about how to improve in general, and I've never really tried to teach anyone, so I can't say for sure, but what I believe is in fighting games, some people will learn more from experience, where all you have to do is say, okay, you have to try doing this more often, like you have to try jumping forwards and attacking more often, and then they'll play a lot of games and they'll try doing it a lot, and then they'll figure out on their own, they'll like instinctively figure out, okay, I have a good sense of what situations I should be doing this in. I think some people will learn more from experience like that, and they just really need to learn, yeah, you have to do this more often, or you have to do this more often, or something like that. You have to do a certain move more often or less often, or you need more variety, things like that. Then on the other hand, I think other people learn more from thinking and planning, where you'd want to say like, you have to do a move like this more often, but and then you have to explain why, so they can think through it, and then maybe practice it a little bit. But something like, well, you have to jump forwards and attack more often in order to counter when your opponent does slow moves in the air in front of you like this, because then you'll hit them. So if you think they're gonna do a slow move, or just jump and do something like jump and home at you, then you should jump forwards and hit them. So in those situations, that's what you should do. But if the opponent doesn't actually do that, maybe they're gonna jump, maybe they tend to jump back, then you don't want to do it because you'll miss. So I think some people learn better like that, like by learning more reasoning, where it's like not just learning what to do, but why to do it and what situations to do it in and things like that. Now when you're learning, you do want to make sure you're learning both like how to hit the other person and how to not get hit. Some people will just instinctively, or I'd say pretty much everyone is instinctively good on one side or the other. They'll either naturally realize what moves are getting them hits and they'll do them more often, or they'll naturally realize when they're getting hit a lot and they'll stop doing those moves as often. But you do want to learn a little on both sides, so even if you're good at hitting the other person, you want to learn like when you should hold back, or when you should play a defensive move, or when you can't attack, or things like that. And if you're on the other end, you're really defensive and you're good at not getting hit, you do have to know the situations where you have to move forwards and hit the other person so they don't get an advantage. Then in each situation, you want to try to learn multiple options. There may be some situations where there's just one option that's really good and you could do it every time, but most of the time you want to learn multiple options, and that's in order to play the guessing game, play the rock, paper, scissors game, where if you only know one option, then you're going to lose when you play against someone who knows how to counter the one option that you know. And simply playing a lot isn't really a good way to improve. I'd say that's true for most things. Like, just playing a lot isn't really a good way to improve. You have to figure out what it is that you need to do better and learn from it. So, for some of the key things to know, it takes a lot of knowledge of what your good options are in different situations, because there are so many different situations. There's like really close range, maybe you're like jumping and the other person is on the ground, or maybe they're jumping as well. Maybe you're a little bit farther away where this doesn't hit. Maybe you're a little bit farther away where like this doesn't hit. Maybe you're really far away. Maybe you're like, you already double jumped. Maybe you pressed homing. There's so many different situations where you want to know like what are your good options in those situations. And then you would also want to know like what is it that your opponent's going to want to do, and how would you counter that? What are your good options for dealing with what it is that you think your opponent's going to do? Then execution is a big thing, where it's not always about doing really tough inputs. Like, some inputs might be tough. Something like this might be a little bit difficult, where you like, but I'd say in general, being good at fighting games doesn't necessarily mean like being good at all the really tough inputs. You just need to make good decisions, and sometimes some situations will require really tough input, but a lot of the times it's just when to attack and how to attack, and then you have to be able to execute it. Then a big point with that is you have to be able to like form and break habits. So when you're just starting out, like maybe I could say something like, if you see someone flying at you, press this move and you'll hit them. And then if you're pretty new to fighting games, that can be a difficult thing to do, where it takes a lot of practice. It's like, oh, someone's flying at me and I have to press that move, and then like maybe you're not used to it and you press it too slowly and you get hit instead. Because that can take a lot of practice to form that habit where you always do the right move in this situation. But then once, like, when I say it can take a lot of practice, I think it took me like years or something to get good at it, but I don't think I ever really got good at it in like Street Fighter. But anyway, if you get good at that part where you have a good habit, it's like every time someone jumps at me, I hit them out of the air and I can do it really well. Well, after you can do that, then you have to do like the next part where it's like sometimes people will bait you into doing the thing that you built up, the habit you built up, which is a generally good habit. It's like a solid option, but someone will like know you always do it, and they'll be able to bait you into doing it and counter it. And so not only do you have to be able to make the habit, you then have to be able to like break the habit when someone's countering it, and then form a new habit and be able to execute it in the situation, like without you don't have a lot of time to think, okay, I need to do this now, and as soon as they do something, like, you have to do it in an instant and figure out, okay, I need to make an adjustment, and I have to form a habit to do it every time I get in that situation. That's something that's really difficult to get used to and really difficult to master. Then one more big point is just to understand that a lot of it is like player reads, and a lot of it is a guessing game where you're guessing okay, I think my opponent's gonna jump, so I shouldn't press this move because if they jump, it's not good to do this move. Now the opponent might not actually jump, and maybe it was good to do, maybe it would have worked to do that move, but you're guessing what you think the opponent's gonna do, or it's like maybe you're flying at each other and you think the other person's gonna press the button really fast, so you dodge backwards and then try to counter them when they miss. Again, that's a guess on what you think the opponent's gonna do, so when you're trying to get better, you should try to understand a lot of it is just like that. It's a guessing game, and there's no single best option, and even options that can be countered should be done sometimes if they counter something else. Now, this is like the end of the stuff I have, but I wanted to go over different mistakes that I see people make when they play against me. Some people are just too limited in their options, or they're too repetitive. Like maybe the only way they know how to attack is by jumping and pressing homing and attacking, and so they do this all the time. But then, like, because you know they're gonna do it, you can just like stand there and counter them, and they keep trying to do it because that's the only thing they know how to do, and then they lose because it's the only thing they know how to do. So that's like one kind of mistake people make. Sometimes people might do, like, they might have a good idea of what to do, but they do a less effective move where it's like, okay, they try to attack in this situation, but maybe they jump and try to attack, but instead of pressing a fast move, they press a slow move, and it was a situation where like the faster move wins. So because they're doing the wrong move, even if you're like slower than them, you still hit them because they did a slow move instead of a fast move. So I'd say some people do that where it's like they do the wrong move, or maybe you're like right next to the other person, and you again do a slow move instead of a fast move, and then they hit you first. So if you do the wrong move or do the wrong approach, it can make it where you just don't win. Like, it was a situation where you were gonna hit the other person, but you did a less effective move. And then sometimes people related to both of those people only have like one approach, where kind of like I was saying, they just jump and press homing, or they just jump and fly forwards or something, and it can be countered in so many ways. So sometimes people don't really use solid options, like flying forward slowly and attacking isn't very solid because it loses to so many things, and it doesn't really beat that many things. Then sometimes people will be just too defensive. Like, they might be really good at it, where as soon as you make a mistake or as soon as you leave an opening, they're gonna hit you, but they aren't very good at making their own openings. So you can just like stay back and then get an advantage, or get yourself into an advantageous position, and then just always play from an advantage, and then you end up winning because the other person misses out on opportunities for free hits, like I was saying, like this. Sometimes people can't quite do the fast moves fast enough, or they can't make the right decision fast enough, where they'll do the right move, or they'll do a good move, but they don't do it fast enough. So let's say it's like this situation where the first person to press the button wins. Well, they'll like move forwards and press the button, but they'll do it a little bit slow, and it actually like has this cascading effect where because they're always just a little bit slow, they always get hit, so they feel like they can't do that move, so they stop doing that move because they always get hit, so now they start like dodging, but now you don't have to press the button as fast because they never press the button fast, and so now they like can't really dodge, they can't press the button fast because they feel like it's not good to do, and they can't move forward slowly because they get hit, so then they like always end up at a disadvantage and it's really hard. And sometimes the reason is just like they're actually a little bit too slow on their decision or their input, and it really causes a large effect. So that's why I think it's worth emphasizing learning the solid moves and knowing you have to know that it's a good move to do, and then being able to execute it really quickly and in game and without thinking about it too much. Some people will overuse the high risk and low reward moves, like they'll just be like in every situation where it's like, oh, if I hit this move I'm gonna win, then they just like throw it out because they're like, well, if I hit I'm gonna win, but I know if I miss I'm gonna lose, but if I hit I'm gonna win, so I'm just gonna do it. But then it becomes really predictable and you can just like wait for them to do it and then you win because they take too many poor risks. And then on the other hand, some people never use high risk moves, so they'll be like, something like this is so risky, I can't do that move, it's bad. And then you can just do like any kind of mix up you want because they never do this move, so you don't even have to worry about it. Where it's like, even if what you were going to do would have been countered by it, you don't have to worry because the person you're playing it against doesn't do it, so you can do whatever you want. Then, for learning how to play against different people, like, some people focus too much on, like, character matchups, but a lot of it is player matchups as well, where it's like, how do you play against the actual person you're playing against, because people play differently. I'd say the biggest factor is like, do you play with an aggressive mindset or a defensive mindset? Because two people can use the same character, but when they play with a different mindset, they might do completely different moves in the same situation. And both styles can be good as well, where it's like one style isn't necessarily better than the other, and you have to know how to play against both. So, like the example that I've gone back to multiple times, a move like this isn't good against someone who jumps, and most people jump, but against someone who doesn't jump, it becomes good again. So something that happens if you play the same people too much is you're like, well, I know you just have such a habit, like the person I'm playing against never jumps, so I always do this move, and then you play against someone who just jumps over it, and then you can't break your habit of doing that move, so you keep doing it. Things like that happen. Then the last mistake I want to point out is people often focus on the wrong thing. I said it at the start, but like, tiers don't mean anything. There's so much complexity and so much room for improvement in the ability of like being able to hit the other person without letting yourself get hit. There's so much to it, and it's so difficult that you should just get better at that, and then you'll win. Like, when I say that, I mean, I have a whole bunch to learn. Like, I certainly can't say I've mastered hitting the other person without getting hit. There's just so much to it that I'm not actually that good at yet, or I'm good at it, but I could get better at it still. There's room for improvement, so it's like, sometimes people who aren't that good at it even will complain about other things, like, well, like they'll complain about tears, or they'll complain about lag, or they'll complain about just anything where it's like, that's not actually what's important. And then some people will focus too much on defensive situations and situations where they're blocking a lot, or situations where they're like facing really difficult mix-ups a lot. Some people will focus too much on that and not focus on like how to avoid those situations in the first place and not get put in them. And then some people will focus too much on difficult combos where they can be useful, and if you enjoy doing it, then it's fine to do it, of course, but when you're really trying to like win, it's not really that important. So you really want to focus on what to do when you're not getting hit, like when you're not at a disadvantage, and focus on how to hit the other person without letting them hit you, and learn what are your solid options, what are your good ways of trying to hit the other person. Then like learn when you're at a disadvantage, so you can't, you shouldn't try to attack because you're at a disadvantage, and you also want to learn like when you have to attack to stop the other person from getting an advantage. So if you want to get better at fighting games, that's really what you have to focus on. So that's the end of this video, and I hope it's useful.